Hello everybody and welcome to the second episode of my weekly card reviews. In this episode I'm going to review the cards of Season 2 Week 5. As usual, this means the top 10 cards of this week, but this time we also have the cost change design competition, which means that there will be 3 additional cards to review. And one thing that I want to note is that I'm recording this on Sunday the 9th, and tomorrow on Monday it is very likely that there is going to be a balance update, meaning that some of the heroes are probably going to get buffed or nerfed. We don't really know too much about this yet, so we only know that Heldim is probably going to get buffed and potentially Ashgardi and Dead as well, but we don't really know much. But I think generally speaking I'm trying to rate these cards kind of based on their power levels, and of course I have to consider the heroes, but I think most of them won't change fundamentally, so the ratings should apply in both points of time. Yeah, as usual I'm going to rate the cards on a scale from 1 to 5. I'm also using decimals, so yeah. Also Empty Folder also started to use 0.5 ratings and stuff like that, so I did my job. And yeah, I think this is about everything that I wanted to have said, so let's jump right into the reviews. The first card on the list is Amatera Cavalier. 4 mana, 3/4 overrun, Entomb, create a horse, and the horse is a 2 mana 2/2 with overrun. Of course, the cost of the horse doesn't matter in any way. Yeah, this card is obviously made for Heldim, because it's relatively aggressive. It has overrun, but the card has a few problems. Mainly, it has 3 attack and 4 HP. The 3 attack is means that you won't get too much damage out of overrun, because usually with overrun you want to have high attack. And also the high HP is relatively bad because it has an entomb that has value attached to it, and if the unit survives for longer, then you won't get any value out of the entomb. And by itself, the card is really slow. 3/4 overrun, that's like pretty much a 3 mana card, and the horse will be created way after you play the card. So I think it's supposed to be a Heldim card, but it's way too slow to ever be played. I give this card 1.5 stars. I don't really see it. I think there are way better alternatives. You can play stuff like Firestarter or Thief of Hope or any of the 4 mana wolves. And that is although that Heldim is likely going to get buffed. But yeah, not strong enough. Better alternatives are there. The second card is Dayling Rogue. 1 mana 1/2 spirit unit, and it has Deadly. Yeah, this is a pretty plain card, a French vanilla, but I'm actually not quite sure on my rating for it, because so obviously this is a control-ish card, so if anything this has a place in that and maybe in Mri, but that is rather unlikely. But so now the question is this strong enough of a 1-drop for that to play? And I think I'm not actually sure, because in that you like 1-drops in that is always a strange topic, because you have these cards like Garlic Bread Vendor that are basically only there to give you XP on turn 1 and maybe 2, and then they have minor effects later on. And like this card is not even guaranteed to give you 1 XP on turn 1, because if your opponent happens to play a 2 HP unit, then there goes your XP. I think the upside that this has over other 1-drops is that later in the game it's better than them, because Deadly gets better with the amount of HP that your opponent's units have. So if your opponent plays higher units later in the game, then you can kill them with the Deadly. But overall, I think this card also has probably better alternatives. because there are cards like Garlic Bread Vendor, there is the Lithotapped Channeler, which is still supreme EXP gaining tool. You have cards like the Dragon Totem, which got in last month, which I think is actually a solid card for that as well. So this might very well not be strong enough, but maybe if you really want to go anti-aggro, then Dayling Rogue. So overall I give this 2.25 stars. I'm not sure if it will be strong enough, but it's certainly a possibility. But even then, it's kind of like the last 3 cards of your deck or something. The third card of the week is Forbidden Delicacy. It's a 1 mana spirit food, and it has feed, give fed units +2/+2 permanently, then destroy them. This is a very special card. You can't just put it right into whatever deck, so I'm kind of surprised it's a common. But regardless of this, there are several use cases for this. But to be honest, they are all kind of hot garbage. One option is to play this in Bullock Undeads or something, because theoretically you could play something like Forbidden Delicacy into the Shinbone Jouster, which would give you a 3/3 duelist that is a 3/3 permanently. Or you could play like any card with Rebound, or like maybe with Unburial Sight, but but all of these applications are kind of just like, yeah, you're playing 2 mana, 2 cards for a 3/3 duelist. Yeah, that's amazing. And like you literally can't play this card aside of those very niche applications, because usually you don't want every unit that you play to be killed instantly. So I don't really see it. Like, yeah, sure, maybe there are a few cards like Unburial Sight that have somewhat cool interactions with this, but like, is it really worth to play this over the other Supreme cards that you could play in Bullock Undead, while 90% of your deck literally don't allow this to even be played? I'm not sure. I'm very not sure, but I think rather not. And the second application that I found for this is with Flip's Burgers, or more specifically the combo meal. So you can play combo meal, then this, and then you can kind of like loop your units or something. The problem here is you can already do that. Flip's Burgers can also give you the hot fries, which is actually not hot garbage, but actually a good combo. For example, with the cat with a frying pan. And of course, yeah, this could allow you to play units that have more than 1 HP or something. And also, you don't need to get 2 foods off of Flip's Burgers. But I think overall, in this combo as well, you're probably just better off playing the normal Flip's Burgers combo. And like, usually, if you get 1 food off of Flip's Burgers, then you also get a second one. Because if your opponent is going to kill the unit, then they're either going to do it right away, or they are going to do it way later in the game, I guess. But I mean, sure, maybe you want to play your jank Forbidden Delicacy combo deck. But yeah, overall, this is a 1.5 stars card as well. It has some niche applications, but 1 mana, destroy all units you play after this. It's not good. The fourth card of the week is Hydraxi Cannoneer. 2 mana, 2/3 spirit unit, active for each keyword among your units. Deal 1 damage to a random enemy, lose this active. Yeah, this is obviously a card supposed to support this keywords archetype with other Hydraxi cards. Right now that archetype mainly consists of TomSoniQ, and then a lot of other cards with keywords. And this card, like, I'm not sure if you're actually willing to play this in the TomSoniQ deck, because you already have to play all of these cards with the keywords to make it work. If anything, then I think this card could be good for that deck to deal a bunch of damage to enemy units and kind of survive against aggro, because I think aggro is the main thing that deck is struggling with right now. Also note that I thought this wording is kind of ambiguous because the keywords don't actually have to be different. So if all of your units have like 5 keywords and you have 5 units, then it's going to be 25 damage or something, and that's pretty solid. So I think like you play this and then you kind of play your units with keywords and your SoniQ, and then to not get overrun by the pesky Heldems, you use this active and kind of hope that it clears the board. So overall, I'm giving this card a flat 3 stars. It might be solid against aggro in this SoniQ deck, but I'm not actually sure if it's worth the spot, and also this is not what's going to make SoniQ the top deck of all time. It's kind of just a support card. The next card of this week is actually a card that goes into the same general archetype as the Hydraxi Cannoneer. It is the Hydraxi Grunts. It's a 1 mana spell, an action, a spirit action. It has create 3 grunts in your hand. The grunts are 1 mana 1/1 leap, 1 mana 1/1 agile, and a 1 mana 1/1 with ambush. So 3 different keywords spread among 3 units. And on the surface, this looks like a very good tool for Hydraxi decks or like SoniQ decks. But the problem that I have with this is, first of all, the one that has leap is kind of useless because leap in general is a very defensive keyword, and usually like you don't want to block with your SoniQ, and you also don't really want to block with that 0/1 unblockable or something like that. And also usually you play a flying unit before already, and then leap is really just worthless. And aside of that, like this card, you could see it as like a 3 mana 1/1 with agile and 1/1 with ambush, and you get this one with leap into your hand, and it has a bit of flexibility. But then again, there's already a card that can give your SoniQ agile and ambush. It's that one spider that's name I forgot too bad, but it is like a 3/2 for 3 that has agile and ambush and has a mini snowball effect on it. And like I'm not actually sure if you want to play the grunts, if they're strong enough to play over the spider and over the other cards with agile in your deck. So this card is actually like, of course, this main thing is the Hydraxi deck, but I think this card is way better in the food deck actually, because it gives you 3 cheap units that have somewhat relevant keywords, and like agile and ambush are both supreme targets for food. So if you can buff them up, then you get some high stat units that can act immediately, and that's pretty good. So I think this card is actually way stronger in food decks than it is in the SoniQ decks. So I'm also giving it a flat 3 stars. If it was only for the SoniQ deck, then I'd probably give it a lower rating than the Hydraxi Cannoneer, but because it is also a supreme card for the food deck, it's also getting 3 stars. The next card from this week is Rutilus, Patron of Fire. It's an 8 mana 6/7 dragon from Telira. It's a legendary, and it has a lot of card text. It has flying, then it has summon, play Skies Ablaze twice. Skies Ablaze is an action that has deal 1 damage to 3 random enemies. Then Rutilus has at the start of your turn, if the top card of your deck is a dragon, play Skies Ablaze twice. And it also has the Entomb Herald. For each Skies Ablaze in your graveyard, draw a card. So this is your high-end dragon support card. on this review, I kind of have to be a bit more cautious, because last week when I reviewed the dragon cards, Kite Dragon and Fortune Dragon, then people got crazy over my reviews, which is a good thing, because like nothing's better than if my reviews sparkle discussions, and like if I am the initiator for these kind of debates, then what could I wish for? That's like basically what I'm trying to incentivize with this. And yeah, I think Rutilus is actually pretty strong. The good thing about him is that his value is kind of spread among his 3 abilities, or like 4, I guess, because he has an immediate effect, the summon, which basically lets him play Incendium, which is a legacy card, but it has basically the same effect as playing Skies Ablaze twice. Then also, if you are able to like do this dragon deck thing of always having a dragon on top of your deck, then you can get this sort of turn effect. Also Incendium every turn, and then even if your opponent manages to immediately kill Rutilus with some removal spell, then he will at least herald a bit for you and draw you your card. And basically that means that you will get a dragon that has a lot of stats into your hand. And yeah, I think that is pretty strong. Also, he's kind of a scary body. It's a 6/7 flying, so that's something. The only thing that makes him not be insane is that late into the game, turn 8 and stuff, playing Incendium is not actually that strong anymore. Because Incendium was a card that was really strong, but it was strong because if you played it on turn 4, it was able to either destroy a 5 HP unit or destroy 5 1/1s or destroy a 2/3 and a 2/2 or something like that. It has a lot of flexibility, but on turn 8 your opponent will have big ass units, and your 2 Skies Ablazes are going to deal a bit of damage across these units, but it's likely not going to kill anything. So yeah. But also note that in Perlmore you could theoretically play this on turn 5 or even turn 4 if you have some ramp card like the Dwarven Cello. But then again, you could also just play Dan Smith instead. But yeah, I think if this is, I give this card 4 stars, 4 stars flat. Basically, if dragons are good and if you are able to have a dragon on top of your deck every single turn, then Rutilus is going to be a supreme card in that deck. It's going to get you value even if it gets destroyed. It could be good against aggro decks, of course, because then the 6 pings that it does on its summon and on the start of turn are stronger. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good card, but it kind of just depends on how strong dragon decks will be. This is their late game finisher or like late game payoff. Yeah, pretty strong. The next card is Short Circuit. It's a 6 mana strength action. It has destroy unit, create 3 flames. The flames are of course 1 mana 1/1 elementals that have when this leaves play banishes. And yeah, this card I think is actually pretty underrated because people always compare it to other removal actions, and of course it is a removal action, but it is not actually just a reaction card, but it does also like do something proactive. It summons the 3 flames, and if you play this in the right deck, which is going to be a flames deck most of the time, then it is actually kind of tempo as well, because if you have a lot of flames on board, then you can buff them up and win the game. And I think it has actually pretty good value. Like 3 flames, that's a solid thing. Like that's like 2 or 3 mana or something. Then it has destroy unit attached to it as well. So 6 mana is of course a bit, but for combining these effects, I think it's actually kind of worth it. Also, you can already play this on turn as early as turn 4 in Palma, so that's something to consider, of course. And yeah, I give this card I give it 2.5 stars because I think it goes straight into the flame deck, of course. The problem here is that flames already have a lot of ways to generate flames. What they need more is ways to buff the flames, or alternatively also like give them ward or something like that, because after all, flames just are really bad against cards like Lightning Surge, I don't know, Forest of Cinders, Earthquake, your AoE of choice, basically. So yeah, but of course it's going to go threat into the deck, but it's not going to make it great on the spot. And the other use case that I could see for this would be with the Water Dancers or Palma, because that deck tries to summon tokens without actually playing them, or like without putting them into their deck, so that they can like play the Water Dancers or and then summon their Prides and Blood Priests and Wrath and then kill the opponent. It's a wonderful deck. I actually played it during the new meta tournament, so I think you can actually find gameplay of it on YouTube as well. But yeah, I think it can go into that deck as well. But also it's not going to make the deck great on the spots too. It's also kind of a bit slow for that deck even, but it's probably an inclusion as well. So yeah, relatively strong. Not going to make any decks really strong, but put this into your flames. Maybe put it into Armor. It's going to be fine. Next card on the list is Spectral Skull. It's a 1 mana 2/1 Spectre, and it has, if you discard this, pay 1 mana to put it into play. Yeah, and this card, not gonna lie, this card is kind of underwhelming. It's a 1 mana 2/1 that does nothing, and even if you discard it, then it's still like 1 mana or 2/1, and like 1 mana 2/1, that's not actually too strong. And also like if you play, say, your Magic Day on turn 3 and you discard this, then you won't even be able to pay the mana, and it will literally just be a wasted card slot. It has this Spectre synergy, but the only Spectre synergy card that we have right now is Spook Blast, and for 1 card you're not going to include this. Yeah, I think overall it's just not strong enough anywhere. The only deck that tries to discard stuff right now is in Marie, and Marie definitely has stronger stuff to discard than a 1 mana 2/1. So I'm afraid this card will have to be the first 1 mana star of the week. Yeah, I think it's just really bad, and this, like, if you compare this to something like Ravaging Spirit, which was, even after it was nerfed, it was like a free 3/3 when you discarded it, and this just compares really, really badly, so 1 star, I'm afraid. The next card is Spirit of Plenty, a 2 mana 2/2 Spectre. It has Summon, Create, The Blossoming. The Blossoming is a 0 mana action that has exhaust any number of friendly units, then gain that much mana. This is supposed to be the first card of a kind of a friendly unit exhaust archetype, I think. So naturally it doesn't have too much support right now. But I think it might actually already be strong enough to be played in dead decks. So in the optimal case, you kind of just play your usual dead gameplay. You play cards on 1, 2, 3, 4. You play your units, and then you can play the Blossoming, or like hopefully you play the Spirit of Plenty on turn 2 or something, and then you can play the Blossoming later and get a bunch of mana, and then play your huge ass spirit cards, stuff like Lithethap Channeler, stuff like Dan Smith, stuff like Ethera, stuff like the 9 mana 5/7 ward horror thing that has a big effect. Yeah, you can kind of just ramp out whatever you want. Obviously, exhausting all your units is usually kind of bad. So I think the place that this card could have in dead decks would be kind of as a card against the more controllish decks. So basically the idea would be that against aggro decks you just play your ambush units and like all the units that you play naturally, which the next card that we will review does also apply to. And then if you happen to match up against a controllish deck, then you use the Blossoming and you ramp out something big, and then it's huge value. And like that has always kind of searched for a way to ramp out they're big units, and the only card that we have right now is this 3-mana bonfire card or whatever. And like that card is really weak because you need to have 3 units on the board at least to even make it even out. So Spirit of Plenty, I think, is about a 3.25 stars card. I could see this being played in that, but like it's kind of niche. You can only really make use of it in some matches, and if you draw this on turn 2 against an aggro deck, like 2 mana, 2/2, no effect, basically, that's not the way to defend against aggro. And you could alternatively just play something like the Huntsman Junior, or the Acoustic Kitty, or something like that. So yeah, I'm not actually sure if we'll see play, but I could see this being kind of strong. Yeah, and so the next card is one that kind of goes into that same kind of deck. It's Sylphina the Brave. It's a 4-mana 1/4 that has summon, deal 1 damage to all enemy units. This has life bond as long as you control more units than your opponent. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good anti-aggro card. Dealing 1 damage to all enemy units can be pretty strong against aggro, but it can also just be good to kind of finish off a unit off of your opponent. Also, the second ability looks kind of weak on the surface because obviously if you're playing against aggro, then they are going to have more units than you are. But I think this the second ability is kind of strong in the aspect that if you are matched against a deck that is slower than you, then you get this life one, and then even if because you are playing against a more controller deck, the summon doesn't deal too much damage, or like it doesn't have too big of an effect, at least you get some HP. And if you played this after you played your Baleful Pumpkinkin and you hit at least 3 units, then you will get your Pumpkinkin trigger, and that's kind of good. So I think this card goes right into all of the dead decks. I don't know how strong that will be, but this is surely a supreme card for him to play. 4 HP, also kind of good to proc the passive, perhaps. So I think Sylphina gets a flat 4 stars. I think, yeah. I want at this point I want to compare this to the other 4-star card of the week, which is Rutilus, Patron of Fire. And surely one could say, damn Tom, you're giving this card 4 stars, while Rutilus is the dragon finisher that can deal so much damage and do so much different stuff. But I think that they are both kind of good in different ways, because the Rutilus is strong, but it can be strong, but it's really dependent on the rest of your deck. And if dragon decks end up to not be strong enough, then it also won't see play. And Sylphina is kind of just the go-to card to put into your dead deck. I think it's just going to get into all dead decks, and it might not be as much impact, but therefore I think it's just a card that is able to be played in a lot of different decks, and is going to perhaps be good there. So those were the 10 cards of this week, but lo and behold, we are not finished yet, because there was also the cost change DC. 3 cards got in from that DC, and before I review the specific cards, cost changing has always been kind of like an ambivalent thing in card games. I think there's actually part of the library of Collective where it says something like be very careful when you design cost reduction effects, because they are typically what has been causing problems in terms of balance in the past. And I mean, like, this doesn't even only apply to Collective. In other card games like Hearthstone or MTG, you also often have cards that produce a lot of different cards and then turn out to be overpowered. There are countless examples of this in Collective. I'm sure you can find yourself your own example. The one that comes into my mind is Flat Tax, which was a really overpowered card from the very early days. It was nerfed like 3 times or something. But yeah, so as you will maybe see in a few minutes, cost changing can be very hard to balance. So yeah, let's get right into the first card. Amatera Armsgiver, 2 mana, 1/3 samurai, summon, draw an equipment, reduce its cost by 1. I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a clear 5-star card. The first 5-star card of this week. And now you might be wondering, how is this 2 mana, 1/3 a 5-star card? So I think this card is so strong because it's a 2 mana 1/3, but it draws you a card. But not only does it draw a card, but it also tutors a card. So if you want to specifically tutor for your Blazing Shurikens, then this is the go-to card for that. Blazing Shurikens, by the way, still being a supreme card in all strength decks, in my opinion at least. And also it does reduces the cost of that equipment by 1 as well. So this is like literally a 1 mana 1/3 draw card. And like, sure, I want to play a 1 mana 1/3 draw card in whatever deck, and it also tutors. So I think this card is really strong. I think this card will go into every single strength deck there is, like maybe with the exception of like some combo decks. But I think you should just play this in whatever deck. It's really good in the wolf decks that are kind of good in my opinion right now. It can just go into all your Helden decks. Really, just play this in all your decks. It's so good. And yeah, like 1 mana 1/3 draw card that is tutored and that is also reduced kind of, or like, yeah, then I think that is really strong. The second card of the week is the Dummy Mummy, 2 mana 2/2 agile, Toon Undead, actions cost 1 more everywhere also. This card makes me cry deep down in my heart because it is yet another card that basically negates Pearlmaw's passive, because now Pearlmaw's doubloons actually count as actions as well. So that is one upside that it has. But generally speaking, 2 mana 2/2 agile is very strong, and Bullock in general. It's also an undead, so it goes right into the Bullock undead deck. Agile is strong because it can kind of enable you to proc your passive more easily. And yeah, aside of that, the actions cost 1 more everywhere clause is also very useful against decks like Rictic. Rictic action spam in particular, which is kind of popular right now. And like basically every deck that is not super aggro plays action, so it is pretty good, I think. So I give this card 4 stars. The only problem that I see is that you yourself as the Bullock Undead also play cards like Lesser Raise Dead, and that will be increased in cost as well. So that is a possible downside, and also just there are so many good undeads right now that I'm not sure if this will find a place. But I think like this is kind of, it's a good card for proccing the passive. It can also counter Pearlmaw, it counters Rictic. Really good card. So now we have the last card of the week and the DC. It's Yamato Omamor. It's a 1 mana neutral equipment, and it has give a unit +1/+1. Reduce the cost of units that share a tribe with it by 1 until end of turn. And yeah, this is mass cost reduction. What could potentially go wrong? I think this is a 5-star card by the way. It looks kind of innocent on the surface as well. It's a 1 mana card, but if you play this in your Lizabo or your Undead deck, and then you play some 1 mana unit on turn 1, and on turn 2 you play this, and then you just puke all of your 1 mana units onto the board, and potentially also play 2 mana units discounted by 1. I think that is insane tempo. It has so much potential, and like also the earlier you play it, the better. But like even at its worst, even if you can only like play 1 unit after it, it's 0 mana +1/+1 buff, and like sure would I play that. That's pretty strong by itself. Yeah, this is actually a nice point of time to compare it to Amatera Armsgiver, because it kind of shows how different cards can be very, very different, but still really strong in the same kind of and still get 5 stars or something like that. Because Amatera Armsgiver is really good because I think it's a good card that you can play in literally every strength deck, and it's going to be performing very well in those. And Yamato Omamor is a deck that you can't play everywhere. You can only really play it in tribal decks like Lizabos or Undeads, or maybe even something more niche like Fish or whatever. But in those decks, this card will be very insane, and it's going to have it has the potential to have a huge impact in those decks. So one card is like very good across multiple decks, and the other is really, really insane in very specific decks. Yeah. And that wraps it up for this week. Those were this week's 13 cards. Really interesting DC. And yeah, some good cards for Spirit, but also like for Dragons, Flames, bit of Spectre, bit of that. We didn't have a single Mind card. That is interesting. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to give me some feedback if you want to. And yeah, see you next week. Goodbye. And play Collective, by the way. It's a very good game.